Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm going to try to be concise today and keep this tight, as we know the governor's office is going to be live at 3:30. We have 2 new positive cases of COVID-19 in Erie County to report today. Both of these individuals are in their 20s and located within Zone 1, which we know can be found on the cumulative cases map at eriecountypa.gov. So that brings our total to 95 cumulative cases, 2,367 negatives, and now we have 78 people who have recovered. 50% of our total cases are female and 46% are male. The breakdown by age is 3% in that youngest group of 0 to 4, 1% 5 to 9, 4% 10 to 18, 15% are 19 to 24, 36%, our largest group, is in the 25 to 49 group, 26% 50 to 64, and 15% are ages 65 and older. Our breakdown by race is 74% white, 21% African American or Black, 3% are Asian, and 2% are multiracial people. Regarding the white statistics of the total cases, they are classified in the NED system as 90% of those are Hispanic and 81% are not Hispanic, so 19% Hispanic within that category. Crawford County has 20 cases now. McKean is reporting 6 cases and Warren stays at 1 case. Chautauqua County has 37 cases with 4 deaths. Ashtabula now has 160 cases and 17 deaths. The state now has 51,845 cases and 3,106 deaths. As of this morning, we can offer a bit more information for businesses permitted to operating starting Friday, May 8th. The following industries may operate as long as the owners strictly adhere to the state guidance, which can be found under the Business Resources section at eriecountypa.gov. And these businesses specifically are dog groomers. Funeral homes can increase their numbers to 25 people, keeping socially distant, wearing masks. And residential properties may now be offered for short-term rental. Regarding stores, most retail stores will open and they're permitted to operate at 50% of their capacity, and masks need to be worn and social distancing needs to be enforced. Regarding the mall, the stores that have entrances that operate outside of the mall proper can be open. Someone must be at the door monitoring to make sure they are not reaching beyond their 50% capacity. All individuals coming into the store, as well as the store employees, need to be wearing their masks, and everyone, again, must stay 6 feet apart. So no interior doors at the interior stores whose doors can only be accessed from the inside of the mall are permitted to operate. We've also gotten word that all organized outdoor sports, so things like Little League and soccer, are not permitted under the yellow zone. But we did just hear that garage sales are able to function. What we're asking is that there be no large organized garage sales that will be truly an event. But for an individual family who wants to have a garage sale, you're certainly allowed to do that. Again, our #1 priority here is the health and the safety of our community. And so we're urging our businesses to really do their best to comply with the guidelines, and we ask every one of you to help those businesses and adhere to the guidelines yourself as we reopen Erie County, hopefully safely and also efficiently. And I want to bring up something Judge Trisilla called me about just a little bit ago. He's asked me to relay some further information regarding the court schedule. The President Judge will be issuing a new order today that states that he is canceling the June jury trial term. All non-jury trials will resume starting June 1st. A jury task force is being pulled together in order to determine how we can bring in juries safely into the courthouse. And so that will be forthcoming from the courts. I want to thank again Judge Trisilla and his entire team for their continued partnership and collaboration with my administration and working to continue to try to serve the people of Erie County while keeping each one of them as safe as we can during this COVID-19 pandemic. And finally, I'd like to remind you, as I do every Wednesday, to complete the 2020 census. This week's response rates are 64% for Erie County, and then within Erie County, within the city of Erie, we're seeing 55% of the city residents having responded. So people who are waiting to respond by mail, those paper copies of the questionnaire are currently being mailed out. It's important to remember to look for that correspondence with the U.S. Census Bureau logo addressed right on the front to current resident. It will not have your specific name on it. As a reminder, they will not be addressed to you as a specific person, but they will just say to the resident at with your address. And with that, I would now like to turn it over to our media for questions. And today we will start with the Erie Times News. David, are you with us? Or someone from Erie Times News? All right, we will move on.
Hold on 1 second. I forgot to call in. I'm not calling right now.
Okay, they're going to call in right now, so. I was pretty quick today, so they might not be quite ready for me.
Host has joined the conference.
All right, sounds like we might have some on the line now. So do we have Erie Times News with us today?
Hello?
Erie Times News? Sounds like we're still bringing.
Hi, Kathy. It's David.
Thanks, David. A little bit of a glitch there.
Yeah,
but you're with me. Thank you.
No problem. I didn't get to hear everything what you said earlier because we were trying to get into the conference.
Okay.
But can you give me an update on some of the, I know you talked about the Millcreek Mall a little bit. Has there been any changes from this morning in terms of what you've heard in terms of the way customers can get in, what stores are going to be open, anything like that?
Yes, we did get clarification on the mall. So if the mall store has an outside entrance, and so think of some of our biggest stores like Macy's and Boscov and JCPenney's, you're going to be able to get into those stores. They cannot allow in more than 50% of their capacity, which obviously their capacity is going to be quite large. They're very large stores. And so they need to be somebody at the front door making sure that that capacity is not reached. Every person coming in needs to have a mask on, and of course all the workers need to be having masks who are dealing with customers. And so they are allowed to be open, as well as any of the other stores on the perimeter that would have their own entrance. But the inside mall proper will not be open. So any store that you could only access by walking into the mall itself will not be open at this time.
And then a follow-up, one thing I had forgotten to ask Melissa earlier today is dentist's office. Are they allowed to be open on Friday?
So my understanding is they're still trying to get clarification, but what we're thinking is that it still will be only for emergency purposes. But again, we need to get some clarification on both dental and eye. You know, very close contact usually with your provider there, and those are the kind of things that similar to, I guess, getting your hair cut, although obviously much more essential than getting your hair cut, except for emergency purposes. I don't believe they're going to be able to open, but again, we're going to get some clarification on that just to be sure.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Talk Erie, are you with us today?
Yeah, we just got in. Thank you. A question about what questions are your team continuing to wait for from Harrisburg?
Well, it's really about some specifics around different things that people are calling us with. And there's just a multitude of questions that are coming in, and we continue to try to get clarification. You know, I think we've gotten a lot more clarification around this 50% occupancy piece when it comes to our stores that may be opening. So it's not just 25 people, it's that 50% occupancy, but also being able to keep people 6 feet apart. So obviously if you have a very small store, you know, the occupancy level is much less than 25 people. So I think those kind of things are we're trying to clarify. The outdoor sports, getting a clarification that soccer leagues, little leagues, league baseball, and those type of organized outdoor sports are not allowed. We've gotten clarification on that while we're in the yellow phase. And again, we're still, you know, we found out dog groomers, I think I might have already mentioned that, are fine and that they can operate, and that funeral homes can increase their numbers to 25 people within their funeral home when there is a death of a loved one, and that residential properties may now begin to offer short-term rentals. So those are some of the things that we have been able to get those answers to. And I want to thank the state. They're trying to be very diligent and answering our questions. And our questions just expanded today, again, just simply because of the questions coming in from you, the people in Erie County.
So quickly, the 25 and less gathering does not necessarily refer to retail. It's more of any kind of gathering. Is that an accurate general rule?
Yes, that's an accurate general rule. And even within some of the guidance, like for businesses, so they're saying no meetings more than 10 people, and that would be basically kind of your internal meetings. But there could be a meeting up to 25 if you had the space and you could keep everyone 6 feet apart, but it may be like a jurisdictional meeting, for example. And so that could potentially happen. I actually was just on the phone call, Zoom call with the State Board of Education as we were talking about the community college, and there was something brought up, like, could we have the hearing in Erie County with 25 people, all spaced apart 6 feet? It would be allowed. I don't know that the board's going to go that way, but those are the kind of things we're getting better guidance about now.
Thanks.
Sure. Erie News Now?
Hi, good afternoon. How would you rate your comfort level as we are fewer than 36 hours away from moving into that yellow phase? Describe how you're feeling about that at the moment.
My comfort level with the guidance, or just my comfort level in general?
Well, both. I think that comfort with guidance would probably play into how you feel in general, so I'll be greedy and ask for both, if I may, please.
Well, my comfort level on the guidance is growing because the state is trying to be responsive to all of our multiple questions. And so that's really helping us, and it's helping us help our businesses who really need to know what to do. So I'm feeling a bit better about that today, and I think we are getting some responses more timely now. My confidence in terms of the overall picture, we were talking today, we expect at least a doubling in our numbers, and what we're fearful is a tripling or quadrupling of our numbers of positive cases going forward. And I think there are many people who have the concern that I and my team have about that, and want to make sure that everybody's continuing to follow the good safety guidelines that are out there. But we still think there's a lot of people who think that it's over, and yet we know COVID-19 is still in our community and is looking for that next host, and you don't want that next host to be you. So I think that confidence level of, is the community fully on board about wearing masks, keeping social distance, keeping their good hand washing techniques going, those are the things I'm more fearful of. And along with that, the people that are going to come to our community from other places who have much higher level of COVID-19 there, and what they might be bringing to our community, because we know it's still about 25% of the people who are contagious with COVID-19 have no symptoms or such mild symptoms that they don't really realize that they are sick.
Is that a concern with the mall, even just with exterior stores opening? People coming from areas where they're still under stay-at-home orders, desperate to do a little shopping, even if they can't get to the entire mall. Is that a little bit of a cause for concern?
We're always a tourist destination, and we're always a shopping destination. So those two things combined do bring great concern. People will come here as they like to come from Pennsylvania because of our no tax on clothing. And of course, there's a lot of stores just to the south of us, Butler County, Allegheny County, Beaver County, that won't be open. And so, the casinos aren't open, the theaters aren't open, the outdoor activities, concerts, and other things that people like to go to are not happening. People are looking for some diversion. So I think you're right, spot on, that we're going to see more of those people coming. And somebody said to me, well, everybody's been in a Walmart in the last 2 months. I'm like, I haven't. I've been into a grocery store probably about once a week, and I think I walked into a pharmacy once. And other than that, I've pretty much stayed out of establishments. So we all have to determine what our comfort level is and what we are willing to risk by going into those. So we're not saying these stores are opening and that it's risk-free. We're actually saying there's a huge risk anytime that you step foot inside any facility that's not your home. whether that be somebody else's house, whether that be a big box store, whether that be one of our great small businesses. Anytime you step foot into another facility that's not your home, you're putting yourself at risk, and so make sure that you do everything to protect yourself and your loved ones going forward. Hannah, are you with us today from Penn Capital Star?
Yes, I am, Kathy, and I apologize if you went over this at the beginning. I didn't hear any of what you said at the beginning of this call. But could you give me some specifics on what questions exactly you're still waiting on answers for from the state?
So we were just waiting on a lot of specific questions around these guidances, and we've been getting more and more of them today. You know, garage sales were a question, and I just got an answer that garage sales are okay, but we talked as a team about what we don't want to see is like neighborhood garage sales, because that's going to just attract a lot of people and be more of an event. And really, we don't foresee any events specifically happening this summer. So we're getting answers to questions like that. Questions such as the sports. There's been a lot of questions. Well, can we have a soccer league? Can we have a little league? And the answer is no. We got that answer today. We're having a question about camps. And there's two kinds of camps. There's the sleepover type camp that maybe your child goes to for a week or two. And then there's the more of the day camp that often people use for even daycare and childcare during the day as they go to work. So we don't have a clear answer on those two things yet, and so we're trying to get some answers on that from the state. And the list goes on and on and on, and I think those questions are going to continue to pop up. But some of the big things that we were wondering about, like the mall, getting that answer has been huge, and again, thank the state for that.
All right, thank you so much for elaborating on that for me.
Sure. Jet TV.
Hi, Kathy. This is Star Bodie with Jet. What are your thoughts or your concerns if the cases double here in Erie County and we having to move back to that red phase immediately?
Well, gosh, I hope that doesn't happen. And we will be monitoring it very, very closely. Of course, we have our health department doing the contact tracing, and we're actually posting the job for per diems for contact tracers. So if there's people listening out here, keep an eye on our website. And if you think you're a person who has a science background, a medical background, and you could help us with contact tracing, we're looking to hire on a per diem level while we continue to need more contact tracers. So we're going to continue to do that great work, and we think that will help us quickly isolate the person who is sick if they are tested and they find out they're positive, and then also quickly quarantine anyone that they may have come in contact with. Now, this, I guess, is a plea to the people out there. Keep a little journal if you can for us of where you've been, because if you become one of those positive people, it's going to be so much easier for us if you can say, well, I was here and I was there and I was in contact with this person and that person, because this is a laborious, very labor-intensive effort that we do with the contact tracing. So help us out if you can, because as we see those numbers climb, that's the best way to control this.
Thank you.
Erie Times News.
Yes, Kathy, going back to the Millcreek Mall, can you take me through the reasons why the concourse and the inside entrances to the stores won't be permitted to open? What are the specific concerns that either the state raised or that you and your staff raised on?
So this decision was made by the state. It was not made by Erie County government. And they told us that the concern in the concourse areas within the mall, very, very difficult to control any crowds. 25 people could gather easily. The 6-foot distancing, although there's a lot of space, there's lots of times when you're in the mall proper where you're much closer to people and bumping into people as you walk, through those corridors. And so I think they felt that each store could control their own environment, but when you open up a concourse, it's kind of a public space, and it's inside. It's not a public space. It's like a park that's outside where you have less issues than you do when you're inside a building. That just becomes much more difficult. And then even all the surfaces. What if somebody's walking through the mall, and who's going to control if they keep their mask on or not? They sneeze upon something that then the next person comes along and puts their hands on. And so they're just on and on, a myriad of issues that they felt within the concourse would make it difficult to control for COVID-19 expansion. So that's why they decided to do that, is my understanding.
And I wanted to follow up a little bit on yesterday about the when Dr. Levine said masks are highly recommended, not mandatory. Did you get any more clarification from the state on that?
They are mandatory inside of a business establishment, and they are mandatory for the people working in those establishments who are dealing directly with customers. So that hasn't changed, but they are, I guess, recommended, highly recommended when you are outside in other spaces. So, for example, at a park or along out for a walk. I'm going to be wearing my mask, and I hope many of you will too. I wear my mask for you, and I hope that you'll wear your mask for me and all the other citizens of Erie County and the people who come to visit us. So it's really just important for us to understand we don't have many tools to fight and stop the spread of COVID-19. We have masks, we have social distancing, and we have really good hand washing and sanitizing. Those are the only things we have. Contact tracing is what we do when somebody's positive. That will help to stop the spread. But we don't have a vaccine. We don't have even good treatments if you are one of those unfortunate people who become very sick. So it's not normal to wear a mask. It's not normal to stay 6 feet away from people and chat with them. But gosh, it's saving lives. And it's what we do for our fellow citizens, I hope. And that's what that's about. So even though it's optional, I hope that people make the decision because they care enough about others to wear those masks. Talk Erie.
Yes, Kathy, I wanted to ask you about new and used car sales. I know there was some specific guidance about online notary and so on that came down a week or two ago. But what about...
Well, we believe that they can happen just like any other business with limiting their capacity to 50% to make sure that there's social distancing going on, no more than 6 feet. So a car salesman would need to stay 6 feet away from anyone they're selling a car to, need to be wearing a mask. That person would be wearing a mask. We're trying to get some, actually, this is another question we're trying to get clarification on. What about somebody who's teaching someone else to drive? We have some driving schools in our community. They can't be 6 feet apart if they're both in the front seat. So what does the state want us to do about that? But I guess if you're selling a car, you could sit in the back seat on the opposite side and let the person, who's maybe taking the car for a test drive. I don't know what that distance is. So these are the kind of things that we all have to think about. And no business wants to be the business that we call up and say, gosh, there's a big COVID-19 spread that's happened because of the things going on in your business. And so that's why we're really trying to be that assistant to our businesses. So they'll be able to go forward, but the notary, that's another question we have to the state, because they gave us the online information, but what about the in-house information? So that's what we're working on also.
And we're assuming that you can get a pink slip processed, right? And all of the registration stuff would happen statewide, right?
We're assuming that, and we hope so, but, again, some more guidance is needed in that area.
Thanks.
Erie News Now?
Hi, perhaps this is impossible to answer, but do you have any clue why it is seemingly impossible to get a list from the state of delineating what can and can't open? Why it has to be piecemeal like this with so many questions? Has anyone said, here's why we're not putting out a list, or is there a list coming that they're just taking time to put together?
We don't think that there's a list coming. When businesses closed down, there was a list. It became very clear very fast, and that list was, massaged and made better as time went on. And it's our understanding there will be no list. And I think the state didn't want to get into those specifics again. So they left it more general with the guidances. And so that's, I think, where some of our struggle comes with as a business calls us up and says, can I open or can't I? If I open, what do I have to do? And so we want to make sure we're doing the right thing by them and not inhibiting anyone, obviously, from opening if they are under the allowed guidances, but also knowing that some businesses are just probably going to be too risky in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic to open up at this point. But that's the only thing I can tell you about that. Otherwise, I can't really answer that question.
All righty. Wish anybody could. And any clue how many contact tracers Erie County is looking to hire?
We're probably looking to hire, I think, about 18 new ones, and got to get people trained up. And the stay-at-home order is lifted on Friday, although just looking at the number of cars on the road and cars in front of stores and seeing how many people were out, particularly over the nice weekend, I think a lot of people have already taken it to heart that it's lifted and they're out and about. So we would expect to start seeing numbers climbing maybe in about a week from now, certainly within 2 weeks from now. That's when we're going to see if there is an effect to this that's negative for our community. And so we got to get these contact tracers in. We've got to get them trained up and ready to go to be able to continue this very, very important work. Okay, how about Jet TV?
Hi, Kathy. What is your advice as we gear up for this exciting day on Friday to reopen some businesses for those customers and residents in Erie County that are eager and excited just to kind of head back to the store?
My advice is have a mask with you always. Make sure you have that mask on. You won't be allowed in a store. You shouldn't be allowed in a store if you don't have a mask on. If you walk into a store with a mask and you don't have, and you see others without a mask, I would go right to a manager and say, I either have to leave your store or you have to make sure people have masks on. We have to get our businesses to do the right thing. Again, I think they all want to do the right thing. And then keep yourself 6 feet away. And at any point, if you don't feel comfortable when you're inside of an establishment, then head out the door and come back some other time when you can have less people there, or find another establishment that has the same type of items you're looking for and go there if they're doing better practices there.
Thank you.
And Penn Capital Star, Hannah?
Yes, I'm just wondering if there will be enforcement teams following and enforcing social gatherings less than 25 people. I mean, does the county have jurisdiction if neighbors call in complaints, if people are having large gatherings in backyards, if the weather gets nice, et cetera?
So we had some of these complaints early on when the stay-at-home order happened, and we would tend to put those in the hands of the local law enforcement, whether it be a municipal police force or the state, rather than county government, because we don't have law enforcement. We have the sheriffs, but the law enforcement roles are much different than what they are at the municipal or state level. So we would actually engage our law enforcement partners to help us with that.
Thank you very much.
Sure. All right, another quick round here. If we can go to Erie Times News. Any last question?
Sure, Kathy. Have you been in touch with the folks, the Millcreek Mall owners, and have they had a response to this at this point?
Yeah, numerous conversations have happened with the Cafaros who own the Millcreek Mall over the last, I'll say, 48 hours. And they seem to be right on board with what we're doing. They want to be a good landlord and a good partner to the community. So they've been very responsive to everything we've asked them, and it's been great.
All right, thank you.
Talk Erie? Any final question?
No, thank you, ma'am.
Okay. How about Erie News Now?
Final one for you here, 36 hours-ish out. Your message to business owners as they gear up for this.
Please help us to do, by doing your part, to keep our community safe. I think our businesses, again, you don't want to be that business that has an outbreak in COVID-19 for your own employees. Let's just start there, and you certainly don't want to help spread it in the community. So we want you to be successful. We want our businesses to make money and people to be able to get back to their jobs and get our economy going again. But we'll only be successful if we're all a partner in this, and that's every business and every customer and every resident and every visitor of Erie County. So please help us to be successful. The state in its entirety is watching Erie County.
And one tiny clarification, I just missed it earlier. The 25-person rule, if a store, if it's at half its occupancy, but half occupancy is more than 25 people, is it allowed to have those 35 or 40 people in?
It is. 50% occupancy, so if they have the ability to go beyond 25, they can. Many of our stores never get to that point because they're so large and, so many people shopping online, but we'll see. I think people are kind of anxious to get out and about, and so that's my fear. You know, they maybe haven't been close to 50% occupancy in most days, but they might be now, so they're going to monitor that for us, and that's great.
Thanks.
Jet TV, any last question?
Yes, just one final one, Kathy. Is there any way the county will enforce stores to be stricter with a mask policy or be issuing guidance to police forces on how to go about this on Friday or for the days to come?
The masking policy we will be following up with our enforcement teams, and that'll mostly come from complaints. If we get complaints from citizens, then we'll first call the business and we'll talk to them about it, encourage them to have signage in a very prominent place where people know they have to have a mask to come in or they don't get any service. And of course, if somebody has a medical condition and can't wear a mask, that's a different story, and no children too or under need to wear a mask. So there are those exceptions to that. And the other thing I might want to add for businesses is you might want to think about having a specific time for the most vulnerable to come in, seniors and those who have medical conditions, because those are the people who are most frightened right now about getting out and about. So you might want to think about having some special time where they can come in. And Hannah, do you have any?
Thank you.
Sure. Hannah, do you have any questions? The final question?
No, thank you.
Okay. Well, in closing, I have a few thank yous I want to give today. I want to personally acknowledge all the nurses in Erie County. It is National Nurses Day. I also want to acknowledge all of our teachers as it's Teacher Appreciation Week. And I also have a special thank you to Mark. It is National Interpreters Appreciation Day. So I want to thank Mark and all those others who have done a great job interpreting for myself and others throughout this pandemic. And a special huge thank you to our nurses and our teachers. You're on the front lines. You're doing such great work, and I know it's not easy. So thank you, thank you. And with that, I want to ask everybody to please stay home as much as you can. Please stay safe, and please stay calm throughout this pandemic. Thank you.